Hello, friends, and welcome back to Liam Teaches Chess. Please be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, trying to grow the channel. Appreciate you. Continuing my series where I review my tournament games on the way to 2000 USCF. Had a couple bad tournaments after reaching nearly a peak rating of 19 something. And so eager to bounce back. Something I'd said after the last tournament was I've been playing a lot, but I've not been doing any training at home. So something I did on the lead up to this tournament is I did at least one puzzle rush survival a day, and just going as far as I can, getting to the mid 50s or so on puzzle rush, just with the idea of working on my tactics, working on calculation, so that it's a habit. So I open up with C4. I'm playing Tim C. This is the player who I had played on the black side the last game I reviewed, where I had a winning position and threw away the win. So wanted to bounce back. He responds with E6. Let me just move my layout here. I play G3, D5, Bishop G2, Knight E6, F3, Bishop E7. So we're both developing our pieces, controlling the center, getting ready to castle here. I castle, he castles, and I play D4. So I have a lot of options. I can always capture, trading a non-center pawn for a center pawn. Reason why you might want to do that is they can take back with the pawn, and now this bishop sees the board. I can also play something like B3, trying to go for a setup with like bishop B2, maybe D3, E4, that quite a bit. D4 is a Catalan setup. This is like the Catalan position here. I typically play the English, which would have a pawn on D3. You wouldn't really want to do here. Just a very symmetrical position. I think I'm a stronger player, so I'm trying to play for a win. So I played D4, and he responded with B6. These are some Queen's Indian positions. I played Queen C2, and he played Bishop B7. I think Bishop B7 is usually what weaker players play, and stronger players I've heard have done stuff like Bishop A6 here, which seems a little weird because this bishop is lined up with the rook. But I think the main idea is to put pressure on C4, E2, the rook on F1. He does B7, and I do Knight D2, Knight B to D2. I'm trying to support E4 in the future, supporting my C pawn, B3, Bishop B2, perhaps in the future. He plays C5, and I play Rook D1. I think I had watched the video the day before this tournament, and I roughly saw this setup, and I was like, "Yeah, let me try it in the game." My opponent took on D4. I took with the knight, so now I have this rook lined up with the queen. He plays Knight D7, and I played E4. I didn't think E4 was the best move. I am catching up on my tournament game, so I don't remember exactly what I was thinking, but I just, there's pressure coming with Rook C8. So I don't know. I guess I'm just blasting it open with E4. He plays Queen C8, kind of a bizarre move. Would be more normal to line the rook up with the queen. And I took on D5. He took back. And my idea here is I play knight F5. And the whole idea is that I get this beautiful F5 square where this knight is just an awesome piece. It attacks the bishop. It attacks the king. It's a very great square to control for my knight. He plays rook E1, rook E8. I play rook E1. So kind of weird. I played rook D1. Now I'm playing rook E1. He plays bishop F8. And I thought for a while here before trading, because something's gone wrong for me where I'm just a little bit behind in development, right? My opponent has all his pieces developed except for his rook. My bishop's not developed. So I calculated that after queen E1, I'm fine with knight F1, B3, bishop B2, my rook discovers, but I still think my opponent maybe should have gone for this because after knight F1, maybe he jumps his knight into E4, he jumps his knight into F6. It just seems like he's improving his position there. So I played b3 with the idea again after queen e1. I play knight f1, and then I threaten bishop b2 to develop my rook with tempo and my bishop. He plays rook b8, just defending his light squared bishop. I play bishop b2. He plays g6. I drop my knight into e3. He takes on c4, and I capture with my d knight. He takes on g2, and here's where I think I just moved too quickly, because things are pretty pleasant for me here, where my opponent has the weaker king. I have dreams of getting a knight maybe here to trying to checkmate the king like this, putting my queen on c3, trying to checkmate the black king. And I think my mistake is that I just like instinctually took with the king and realized that I should just take with the knight here and not allow my opponent to trade queens. He seemed to be wanting to try to play for kind of a draw. He's playing me, who's a little bit higher rated than him, had beaten him handily, and then he defeated me in a game where really it was kind of me beating myself versus him beating me. Not a shot, just what I think happened. I took with the king, and that just allows queen e4, and I'm kind of forced to trade, and I'm kind of lucky to have like rook d1, and after knight c5. What I really want to make work is I want to make work like, what I remember looking at is something like king f3, where I threaten b4. So, like, if my opponent just does nothing, threatening b4. And again, if my opponent doesn't check me, but just moves his knight, attacking my bishop, but my knight defends. The point is I've removed the defender of this knight, so I would win a knight that way. So I'm trying to make f3 work. I'm trying to make b4 work, just dislodging these knights defending each other. But I can't really make it work. And so I played knight g4, somewhat threatening knight f6, maybe threatening to get my knight into e5. He plays h5. I play knight e5. He plays b5. So he's kind of dislodging my knight as well. I drop that knight into e3. He plays bishop g7. And I have this move knight c6 where I attack his rook to get out of the pin with the bishop. Point being, if you take my bishop, I would take your rook. A rook is worth 5. A bishop's only worth 3, so that would be a great trade for me. My opponent plays rook a8 because they realize that I'm going to trade, and I'm attacking his a pawn. And so that's what occurs. And then I have this move b4, and I think my opponent needs to play something like knight a4, or yeah, just like threaten moves like knight c3, knight a4, knight c3, maybe winning my a pawn. But he plays knight e6 and rook d7, and I'm just better because not only am I double attacking the a pawn, which it doesn't seem like you can defend other than pushing it, but I also have the threat of knight e5, double attacking the f pawn, which is pinned to the king. And so a6, knight e5 hits, and he plays knight g5, knight e to g5. And I had realized that this was a blunder way back when, just because I had been looking at some other lines where the knight goes here. I think after, if my opponent plays knight d8, defending f7, I really wasn't sure what I was doing here. I feel a little bit better just because my pieces are active, but I think my opponent can totally untangle moves like king f6, attacking my knight. Um, Maybe I'm able to attack his knight, but no, it seems like I don't see much of an advantage. But yeah, he blunders with knight g5, which I very quickly play h4, simply removing the defender. And he surprised me with the move knight f6. Um, and really, the only thing I calculated here was take, take, and I trade a rook for 2 knights, which in general, 2 minor pieces are supposed to be better than a rook. So I did think that would be good for me. Now, it turns out I can just play my rook anywhere on the rank safely. So, for example, rook c7. And the point is, you have to move your knight And then I could take on f7 with check, and you're just gonna lose this game because I'm gonna maybe get the knight as well. Something like this would occur. So yeah, black would be in big trouble if I had found that. I go for this though, which computer thinks a mistake because they think that it is equal here. Now, maybe the engine reads this as equal, but I think in a practical sense, it is very hard for black to play compared to white. Again, two knights can work together, and once if you can just shore up the weaknesses and have the knights defend everything, it's very pleasant to play for white. So he plays a5, and I don't want to be doing something like a5 and getting this rook active, and now I have this passed pawn to worry about. I calculate that after a3 takes. I think I'm just going to get back and defend this knight, and that's what I do. He plays knight a4 or rook d8. I had thought after rook a4, I would just play knight d5, defend my weakness. If you try to attack my other knight can just come and defend, and everything is pretty much defended here. And then I would slowly work my king in and probably try to win your b pawn, and then push my b pawn and try to win the game. Um, but he does rook d8. I play knight f6. He plays rook d4. And then the big choice for me is like whether I want to play this knight or this knight to d5. I wasn't really sure. This one makes sense because your knights are moving up the board and it's taking, maybe your king wants to use that square. This way made sense to me too, where I think I can advance my knights later. Engine thinks this is a blunder because, I don't know, I'm sure there's some computer move here, but he plays h4, and I simply take. His rook takes, and then after f4, yeah, I don't see how I ever lose this, where my knights defend each other. There's no pawns that can dislodge them. My knights also defend my only weaknesses, and I'm just going to slowly chase this rook away, bring the king over here, come win this pawn, and black's in trouble, right? The one rook just can't do enough. So I think my opponent was feeling squeezed here, and he played f6, just trying to, I don't know, get things going. I just take it. No, I'm not thrilled to have doubled f pawns, but again, my knights defend all my pawns. You can never push your g pawn. I'll simply trade and still have a passed f pawn. So my opponent plays king f7. I play king g3. Plays rook h5, and I play rook f3. I thought about going like this right away, but if I do that, then I think I run into g5 when the rook is pinning my f pawn. So that's why I chased the rook away before coming to f3. I think my opponent should probably go back to h3, make me at least take some time. But he plays king e6. I play king e4. Now, I'm sure there's some computer moves here where I'm able to like fork this rook. But I didn't really feel a need to calculate that because I just don't see how you stop me from my relatively simple plan. He tries rook c8. I play knight b6. And the point is, after rook d8, I just advanced the other knight. So I advanced my knights kind of naturally, where I moved them up the board. They're still defending all my weak points. This knight now is stopping the rook from coming to c8, so that I'm going to be able to play king c5 and king takes b5. My opponent plays rook h8. I get to c5. He plays rook h5. I take his b pawn. He gives away his g pawn, which I say thank you. And then we play some moves here. I'm just kind of tickling the king. I feel like I'm winning. We're both kind of low on time. If he's going to let me get to king 8 and just play f7, f8, I will do that. If I feel like there's no real messing up for me because I think I can always just make my way back over here and start pushing my b pawn. Engine disagrees. It thinks it's a draw at some point, but king f7, I simply grab sideways opposition here. He plays rook c2. I don't think, I dropped below 5 minutes, so notation stops pretty much here, but eventually I'm able to, I think I play knight c8, knight d6. I'm able to push the f pawn, and then with the rook and king dealing with this pawn, I think I slowly push this pawn as well. So whatever, eventually I promote, and I win this game. We are playing a quad, which is when you're with 4 players. This is quad 1 of the St. Pete Chess Club. So I win the first game against Tim, who is, I think, rated like 1820 or so. So game 2, I'm playing with the black pieces against a player named Miguel. I've not played against him before. He plays knight f3. I play knight f6, g3, g6, bishop g2, bishop g7. So pretty much just mirroring each other here. Castles, castles, rook e1, and I play d6, kind of going for this King's Indian type setup. He plays d4. I play c5. He plays e4. I take on d4, trading a non-center pawn for a center pawn. He takes with the knight. And I played knight fd7. I wanted to play knight c6 right away, but I thought takes, and e5 could be annoying, where his bishop is threatening my c6 pawn. And if I take, I have doubled e pawns. For example, he can trade here, pick up the c pawn, and then pick up my e pawn maybe. Now, maybe I have some discoveries moving my knight with the bishop attacking here, or the rook coming in with bishop h3. But yeah, that's why I retreated my knight to d7 first, kind of just letting my bishop and knight see the e5 square. Maybe this knight's going to come to c5. Plays king h1, a very unusual move to start a game. I guess he wants to move his f pawn, and he's worried about moves like queen b6. Oh, pinning the knight to the king, not the bishop. So I play knight c6 now. He plays bishop e3. I play knight e5. Oftentimes, when this bishop's on e3, you want to harass it with knight g4. My knight is also threatening to come into c4. He trades, and I take with the pawn. Again, I want to keep these threats open. I also want to capture towards the center, and I want my rook to have the b file where it can work with my bishop. And I feel like the opening's been a great success for me now. My opponent plays knight c3. I play rook b8, saying you take me, I take you, and now you have a loose knight, and your rook is lined up with my bishop. He plays rook b1, getting out of the pin, and I play c5. The reason why I played c5 is really what I was calculating is knight c4, and white can blunder here with something like bishop c1, where I can take the bishop on c3, and you would lose your rook. But I wasn't really sure what was happening after knight c4, bishop takes a7, rook takes b2, knight takes b2, probably rook takes b2, rook takes, knight takes, and then, I don't know, queen d2 maybe, defending the knight. I removed my knight. So I wasn't really sure here what was happening. Looking at this now, I think this is just better for black, where I probably have moves like bishop a6. And more importantly, white has these weak a and c pawns where, eventually I'm going to be able to put my rooks on these files and win these weaknesses, these isolated pawns with no friends, compared to me, where I have one pawn island. All my pawns are connected. White has 1, 2, 3 pawn islands. Less pawn islands are easier to defend. So I think knight c4 is the computer's best move. It is what I was originally planning, but I figured after c5, let's just take out bishop takes a7 and then do the same thing is what I was thinking. But my opponent plays b3. Okay, I don't get to play knight c4 anymore. And so I played knight g4. He plays knight d5. I take his bishop. He takes back with his knight. And I play bishop e6, not allowing the knight to jump into c4, or he'll have doubled c pawns. He plays bishop f1, and I play bishop c3, hitting the rook. And I would love if I could play bishop g4, where not only do I pin the rook to the queen, winning the rook, but I also threaten to get into f3 square. But unfortunately, this knight is annoying. So instead, I play rook b4, hitting the e pawn, maybe threatening rook d4. My opponent plays f3, and I do play rook d4, and I know I'm being risky here because I saw that queen c1's my opponent's only move. Um, but I knew I was being risky because if I don't escape with my rook now, I might be getting my rook trapped, right? My rook can't go here, can't go here, it can't go here, it can't go here, can't go here, can't go here, can't go here. So I'm definitely being risky, not saving my rook now while I can, which I don't. I play queen a5, hitting the a pawn, perhaps threatening bishop d2. And my opponent plays knight d1, hitting my bishop. I really don't want to get rid of this bishop, so I did settle on bishop d2 here, hitting the queen, queen b2, and then I bring my bishop back to h6, thinking I can reroute it to g7 to line up with the queen. My opponent plays c3, and I realized, I knew I could get my rook trapped, and I think that's occurring. I play rook d3. He plays rook f2, hitting my rook with his bishop, and I play c4, a move I think I have to play, where I'm saying, you take me, I take you. I always have the ability to trade this rook for the knight, but I would much rather grab the bishop pair, where at least I can say, all right, at least I have the bishop pair despite being down the exchange, and still your king's a little weak. So I play c4. He does trade on d3. I take back, and he plays c4. And this move's kind of annoying because, I want to keep on to this pawn, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So here I spend quite a bit of time trying to choose which move to play between either queen e1 or bishop h3. I would love to play bishop h3 and then queen e1 because that is checkmate. Um, Queen e1, king g2. What am I doing there? I think I have to play d2, dislodging the queen and rook seeing each other, having a protected pawn. Bishop h3. Okay, I think he just moves his knight to c3. Knight to c3, and now the rook defends your back rank, and I'm just worse. So I do settle on queen e1. He plays king g2. I play d2. He plays queen c3, hitting my d pawn, and I guess just, I don't know, trying to get his queen over. I play f5. I did think about d5, which I believe is the engine's best move. The whole point is I'm trying to open up lines where if you take like this, bishop f5 hits your rook, and if your rook comes to a1, bishop g7 would skewer the queen to the rook, and maybe more. And if you come to b2, you lose this knight. I still have bishop g7. And if you take with the c pawn, which I didn't see all this and why I didn't play it. The point is after rook c8, and something like queen b4, you save your bishop, and eventually you're invading on the c1 square. But it gets pretty crazy and complicated. Because if white's ever to play like f4 and stop my bishop from seeing the d pawn, and I lose the d pawn, well then I'm just down the exchange. I'm down a pawn, and I'm losing. So I played d5. No, I don't play d5. Sorry, I played f5 with a similar idea, where if you take, I take with the bishop, and I am threatening takes, and my rook invading in here, where if you take with the knight, I'm winning your rook. My opponent plays queen d3. I take on e4, and he takes with the queen, thinking that he is trading queens. Again, if he takes with the pawn, something like this happens, and here I think you just play bishop e3. Where the point is, if you take me, I promote, and you lose your rook, and I'm double attacking your knight. If your queen moves to defend the knight, I think I can take and then win your rook. And if you're just lost here. I'm just getting in. But he took with the queen, and so I played bishop f5. So I forgot to mention actually that I pulled my back before this tournament. So I was on all sorts of, I was on some medicine to try to help with the pain because I really, I had a history of back spasms, so don't really want to go to a chess tournament and be on pain medicine, but I was, and I'm taking my time though. I'm playing good chess, I think. So bishop f5. Um, and I just know I'm winning now because after queen d5 check, I have a nice move e6 where my bishop defends the e-pawn. So does my queen. We attack the queen with tempo, and we're going to win the rook. So he takes on d6. I take the rook on b1. He plays f4, and he resigns after bishop e4, where what I had calculated was basically king h3. First, I play bishop f5 check, king g2, and now I take the knight. And you have no checks. I'm up a significant amount of material, and you still have this d pawn to maybe worry about. I guess you win the d pawn, but again, you're down two bishops here, so you're just gonna lose this game. Um, so a pretty good, like I was definitely worried at this point because I was losing the exchange after I felt like I was dictating that the action this whole game. Um, but I was able to clutch it through with a couple accurate moves, a couple tricky moves as well, and win this one. So I'm 2-0 in the quad, which brings me to game three. Now, sorry, someone's just beeping their horn outside. Um, I think we're playing game 45. So I'm 32. And so I have had some issues with just like stamina and focus for the last games where, like in bigger tournaments, usually you play 1 to 2 games a day. For something like your local club, playing 3 or 4 games a day is common. So just something I need to work on. Getting back into fitness and whatnot is usually a way you can do this. I'm playing Lubo here, who, if you guys have been following the channel, he's the one I played at the Gulf Coast Open, and I was totally winning as black, and then threw away the win at the last second. Um, we've played a bunch of games, and it just happens to be that um, I've only had white like I think twice or 3 times, and I've played black maybe 7 or 8 times, and I won the first game as white. I think I've won 0 games as black despite being winning in at least 2 or 3 of them, and we have no draws. So not a great record for me, but he's rated my last opponent, by the way, was rated about like 1750. Again, I'm like 1850-ish at the point at currently, and he's rated around 2100. So he plays d4, knight f6, c4, g6, and h4. So he didn't like how the last game went, where we had played a more standard King's Indian, and frankly, I just outplayed him and then threw away the win. So he's playing h4, not a move I expected. Obviously, very aggressive. The ideas are playing things like h5 and sacking the rook, just trying to get a checkmate going. I just instinctually played h5, shutting down ideas of g4. I kind of wish I had played h6 with the idea of h5 can be met with g5. And at least I'm not getting mated. I do have light squared weaknesses though, but it's not what happened. I played h5. He plays knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, bishop e2, castles, which maybe I should be waiting to castle because I do know, like this attack is coming. And so maybe I just develop my queen side, something like this, and castle over here where I'm like, okay, go ahead, attack over here. I'm bringing my king over here. And I kind of what I can wait to see what side he castles on. So I castle, he plays f3, I play c5. This is like somewhat of the Seamus, where he's going to play g4. And oftentimes when you're being attacked on the flank, they say you need to counter in the center, which is what I'm trying to do. He plays d5. I play knight d7. Plays knight h3. I jump my knight into e5. He plays knight f2. And I play e6. Again, just trying to get something going in the center. He plays bishop g5. I play queen b6. He plays queen d2. And I originally had intended to play queen b4, where I am, just threatening to get in there, and trying to force the move b3. But I didn't. I took on d5. I think the engine did think queen b4 was the best, by the way, allowing him to trade a bunch of pieces here. And I felt pretty fine here. Like I got rid of my best piece, my dark squared bishop. But I don't think I'm losing here. I just develop in castle. He queen size castle. So clearly, again, g4 is an idea. I play rook d8, defending my d pawn. Turns out that I think bishop e6, queen d6, and for some reason black's better. I don't quite remember. But you can apparently give away this pawn and be totally okay. Um, that I'm not usually trying to give away pawns, so I play rook d8. He plays f4. I play knight c6, and I was feeling pretty great here because I thought my knight was going to get into d4 and everything's fine. Then he plays f5, and yeah, I don't feel as good now because he's going to take on g4. I don't really want to take myself. He's going to line his rooks up here and attack me. Kind of seems like he's getting a free attack, so I jump my knight into d4. Let's at least shut down the d file. He plays rook h3, and I play b5. I figured that, he's an attack is coming. I need to counterattack. I'm kind of behind in development. I need to get something going here. He plays g4. And again, like pretty low on time at this point. Um, and just more importantly, tired. Like this position's a headache to calculate, right? Like take rook here, or take, or take. So it's just so much to calculate. I wasn't really sure. I just played rook b8. Maybe something's coming here one day. And I figured after takes on h5, what I can do is I can take on f5. And seems funny because I'm opening the G file, but the point is you have these doubled H pawns. If you're not promoting these, I'm probably fine. And funny enough, after takes on F5, engine reads this as totally equal, totally drawn, 0.0. He plays rook G3, and I originally had intended to play king F8, just thinking, I'm going to get over here. I'm going to get my bishop in the game, and I can fight for the G file. I can bring my rook to the H file. I can go forward with my attack. But I played king h7, thinking that after rook g1, I could play queen h6 and force a trade of queens. But then I realized I made a mistake because queen h6, rook g1, they have rook g7, and I'm forced to give up my queen for two rooks because if I play something like king h8, his queen's going to take my queen on h6. So king h7, not the most accurate. I think king h8 is also fine. He plays rook g1. I take on e2 and then take on c4. Trying to get something going here. He plays knight h4, and that's where I realize I'm in somewhat trouble. But I play bishop a6, kind of bluffing that I'm going to play c3, and he does buy the bluff. He plays queen d2, and I play rook g8, thinking, okay, knight g5, king h8, and I'm fine, right? Like I'm totally fine. I also noticed that, um, in some of these lines, he's going to be able to play rook g6 when his queen's on d2. He's going to be able to play rook g6, give up his rook, but he's going to checkmate me with the queen on h6, where my queen can't guard h6. So I play rook g8. He plays knight g5, king h8, and then I just didn't even calculate this. Knight takes f7, and I realize I'm just losing, for many reasons. Queen takes knight, I think, just runs into queen h6 check, and you're losing the game after something like this. Um, so just one of the many lines that I'm losing. I tried king h7, and yeah, the same thing happened. Rook g6, threatening queen h6 checkmate. I played f4 and then resigned here. So I wasn't really upset about losing this, to be honest, because I just felt like I was somewhat outplayed, which is an acceptable loss. And, I had a crazy position. I don't think I played the opening that well. I was surprised by this move H4, so definitely something to review. Spoiler alert, we did play again in the future where again I was black. Um, and I did play differently. So is what it is. I lost this game, but I ended up winning 2 games and losing 1. So I gained about 20 rating points, bringing me back to giving me back basically the points I had thrown away the tournament before. So I was back to about 1850 or so. So pretty good tournament. Again, I threw my back out the morning of this tournament, helping a family member like move some stuff. Pretty freak accident. I had to like Uber to the tournament. And so despite being medicated for the tournament, winning 2 games, only losing 1, pretty good result. Don't think I played perfectly, but um a good tournament nonetheless. So, hope you guys appreciated these tournament breakdowns. Again, tell your friends, like the video, subscribe, it all helps out, and have a great day.